What is going on, everybody? Bird brothers and sisters, Lydia and Zone back again for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Eagles, one video at a time, and hopefully at some point dropping buckets for the Dallas Mavericks whenever Luka decides to get back onto the floor. That's neither here nor there, obviously, as this is episode 3 of Touchdown Talk, and well, it finally happened to this point that, my special guest here in Big Play Slay, the very own, not the one on the field, but the one that is a content creator, because they're both Big Play Slay to this moment in Darius Slay, Slay exceeding expectations. And, it seems that BPS himself is exceeding expectations in terms of his channel and hitting 1,000 subs. And now YouTube decided to be like, nah, you can't have that just yet, and cuts him back down. But you still hit that big 1,000 number, and I am grateful for you to accompany me in episode 3, keeping my new series going. BPS, how are you on this Monday evening?
I'm doing great. I am thankful for this moment. Always good to get on other channels and do collaborations. I think this is my second time on your channel for a collab. So it's been a lot of times for call-ins, but for like collaborations second. So yeah. This is good.
Yeah, it was quite a long time already, because the first time it was we had that roundtable with Philly Insider and Hunter and Let's Go Birds was a part of it. You were part of it. I think that was it in terms of the content creators that were involved. But as I was already on your channel and in terms of collaboration, now it was your turn to come over here and hang out in the end zone. God, that's terribly cliche. That was terrible. But without further ado, for those in the viewership of this stream, let's get into it again with this Jets win. As I inappropriately sounded miserable in opening on it. Yeah, the Eagles won in spite of the absence of Jalen Hurts, with Gardner Minshew coming in and with his responsibility as a backup quarterback, he came in and he took care of business against a bad team. Let's face it. I mean, the Jets did look bad at the start of the game because of the special teams miscues by our Birds, and then they scored off of it right away. But you got to call a spade a spade. The Jets are still a bad football team, even though they play hard for Robert Saleh. And so before we dive any deeper into it, I will let you have the reins at first here, and pretty much what was your big takeaway with the Jets victory, and how this sets up the Eagles going into the bye week?
My big takeaway from this game is let's call it spade a spade, as you said. We beat a bad team. Like, I'm not finna ramble on here and act like we just beat the greatest team in the world, because we did not. We beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. But hey, we did look good while doing it. That's what we were supposed to do. If we didn't do good yesterday, it would have been a whole different story. So yeah, I'm just happy that we did good yesterday. We got the job done. We did it smooth. It's been a smooth ride for the Eagles this year. It's been up and downs here and there, but the Jets game really proved that this team can go far, but we beat a bad team. So yeah, Minshew looked good, but I don't know if it was more sort of the Jets off balance because they were prepping for Jalen Hurts and not Minshew the whole week. So they were a little bit off balance at the last second. They got word that Minshew was supposed to start. So that kind of took them off balance. But hey, it was a smooth performance by the Eagles. Nothing too impressive. We've got the win. most of our wins this year have been blowout wins against teams that we should have beaten. And hey, just glad that we got the win. My big takeaway from that game is, um, yeah, we beat a bad team. That's really all I.
There's not a whole lot, not a whole lot to take away at all, other than the obvious change of position that there was at quarterback, being that Jalen Hurts was not ready to go because of the ankle injury that he sustained, and actually it was a little more of an escalation from his ankle to his heel, because there was also discomfort in his heel. So I mean, you can only imagine, not to the extent of like an Achilles esque type of injury, but the level of discomfort that Hurts probably, that he was probably just going through. There's no way that there's no way that he's going on the field being you're you're asking him to play to 50% of his skill set, and ideally that's not what you want, but still, uh, with how Minshew played, he did pretty much everything I feel that the Eagles asked him to do in terms of the offensive execution, and really dialing in with the play calling that Sirianni was giving him. Now, it looked good on the surface that we were able to put up 21 first half points, but it got toned down a little bit to where we didn't have much success. Driving the football down the field, we did. We were able to get it into field goal range 4 times, and and I think that leads into one of my, not really a big picture takeaway, but one of my bigger takeaways is, um, man, how about the campaign of redemption from last year that Jake Elliott is putting on in that kind of a show for the Eagles, and how much scrutiny and how much criticism that he was, enduring. And of course, it was going, like, he deserved some of it, but it was also said at one point that the system itself, between the snapper and the holder, and there was a timing issue, so it wasn't completely on Jake, but still, all in all, when your foot hits that ball, you gotta put it between the uprights, and
Right.
so there was still blame there, but when he got that massive extension, and to show us what we didn't want to see, and then come into this year with, and I don't even know what the expectations were with him, but I think it's fair to say that Jake did catch some people off guard with how accurate he's been to only have missed 2 field goals. Yeah, he was. I mean, in terms of special teams, I think he is deserving of a Pro Bowl spot. As 90 states here, he believes Elliott is a Pro Bowler, and I think for some that's fair to say. What do you think of how Jake Elliott was, how he pretty much drastically bounced back from a porous 2020?
Yeah, I have been really surprised with Elliott's performance this year, because when you look at last year, everything kind of crumbled down, and he kind of crumbled down with the team. And Peterson, Wentz, I don't want to say Wentz's name anymore, but yeah, sometimes you have to ring it up. But
He's out here.
right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but Elliott was kind of he fell into like the trap of last year, right? So he kind of fell into what everything happened last year. He kind of fell into that bad performance from the Eagles last year. And he fell right into it. But this year he has gotten a lot better. I do not know what he did. Last year, what I had a big concern with him was he would make those like 50 yard kicks and 40-yard kicks, but he missed those 20-yard kicks, those 25-yard kicks, 30, those easy kicks. yeah, he missed a lot of easy short kicks, but this year he's worked on that. He can still hit the long kick. Now he can still hit the short kick. So he's gotten a lot accurate, and I would make a case that he's a Pro Bowler. For the special team side, right now he's playing like one. He's only missed 2 field goals. That's ironic. Ironic enough, I did not know that. He missed 2 field goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year his longest is at least anywhere in the mid to high 50s. So he still has the boot, he still has the boot to back him up. Like, when we witnessed that 61 yarder back in 2017, that seems like ancient history now, but
Right, right.
that's what started it all when he hit that game winner that still just creeped into just almost rubbing off of the right upright and had just enough. And he still has the power capable of hitting from long distance. And for what he's done this year, just again to continue to bounce off of it, that comeback that he's had is it's unbelievable to this point. And while there's maybe some that will talk in a way of, well, he got that contract, that's what he's supposed to do. And yeah, while that's still a respectable opinion, you have to admit that maybe it's a I didn't see this coming kind of moment. And I have to imagine between this year and last year, I don't think he had I don't think he has more field goal attempts last year than he did this year,
Right.
considering how the offense played. So that's also important in maintaining consistency of having those opportunities based on how far the how far the offense can drive down the field and get you in that range. So the offense is also helping him as well and keep in maintaining that fresh foot of getting him on the field to make these kicks. So it was an all around effort there. And I don't think there's no complaints warranted as to how darn good Jake Elliott has been for special teams. And I think part of that just also helps how well Aaron Sipos is as a punter, because he is the holder. And between him and the long snapper, there's a better communication, there's better timing. They're just on a more consistent page than how 2020 transpired. And that's just how you have to chalk it up at the end of the day.
I agree with you. I think it's more sort of what you said. The Eagles' offense giving him more opportunities to get in the field goal range, and I'll make those make kind of sort of redeem himself for those short kicks. So he won't have to take those long kicks because the offense is always in the red zone. So whenever the
Yeah.
offense doesn't go third and out, or if they go third and out, he has an easier chance to score in the red zone because it's an easier kick, and he's gotten a lot more better at that. So yeah,
Well, maybe that's because the Eagles are starting to run the football.
right, right. I mean, if
And
Sirianni ran the ball against the Niners, we would have won that game as well. So running the ball a lot.
well, being one dimensional, being one dimensional surely doesn't help. Surely doesn't help your chances at attempting field goals either, since you're going three and out constantly. Whether it was just bad execution and play calling this year, or 2020, but we don't have to go back to that again. But Jay Milton had me right on the money, saying that Jake's longest field goal is 58 yards. So that's what I was thinking. I was gonna say like 56 to 58. That's why I was like mid to high 50s. And wow, hit it right on the nose. Appreciate that, Jay Milton. And we also got Gene Gordon in here saying that he loves the stream and good job. Appreciate you giving that comment. Already 15 minutes in, and we haven't gotten necessarily deep yet.
Right.
We've been primarily focusing on the offense and whatnot. We still have to go over Gardner Minshew's performance, and so we'll go into well, obviously Jake Elliott is more so special teams, but you guys get the picture. He's still producing points for the offense, but um,
Right.
man, Gardner Minshew, brings back the stash. The good old Uncle Rico Minshew mania comes in against a bad Giants team, but
Right.
he had only 5 incompletions. He didn't light up the stat sheet necessarily in terms of overall yardage. You would think that you would be closer to 300 yards, or like in the 280 to 290 range with 25 attempts if you're that kind of a passer. But in terms of quarterback play style, he's not much different than Hurts. He doesn't scramble as often, but I do think Gardner is a better touch thrower. That is one thing Hertz does need to work on, because I mean, you know, while it's been said that Gardner didn't really take advantage of the middle of the field or left or right side or what have you. Um, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen Hertz throw much down the seam with his tight ends, and especially Goddard, who was Goddard was pretty unstoppable in that first half to have 105 yards on 6 catches and 2 touchdowns. And of course, Gardner didn't necessarily put those on the money, but he still got the ball where it needed to be, and they resulted in touchdowns. And whether it was making plays a little bit out of structure, hitting Quez on that crosser that goes completely across the field when he started on the right side, and how Gardner was able to extend the play that way when he moves to his left a little bit. Any other notable throws that I can think of? Not necessarily, other than that 50-50 ball that he threw up to Devontae Smith. And
Mhm.
while most of us thought that was pass interference because the contact was early, Devontae, I think, also jumped a little too early in trying to fight for the ball. But overall, with how Gardner was able to execute this offense,
Right.
you and I get it. I get in terms of the competition, but at the end of the day, Gardner did what he had to do, and that's get the job done, win the game, and he was it was quality. It was very good quality.
Um, what I was gonna say was one of the throws that also impressed me, as you said, the crosser. I think that was in the Jets territory. And
Hmm.
another one that was on the Jets territory. It
Yeah,
kind
I think that one to Quez was a gotta have it kind of play. It was either like a second and long situation, or
of
it was a third down play. I can't remember.
there was this over route I think they ran, and Watkins kind of like ran over route, and Minshew kind of stepped up in the pocket, and he had time in the pocket, and then he stepped up and he found Watkins on a crosser over route. So yeah,
Okay, yep, that's right. That's right.
yeah, there was two plays like that where it went 20 plus yards. What up, Dante? Yeah, but he had two of those plays where it went 20 plus yards. I'm very happy that they involved Watkins in the game plan. We don't really see Watkins enough, and when we do see him, good things happen. Unlike someone that we know, number 18, on the Eagles, Jalen Rager, regular. I don't know what you want to call him. Um, but yeah, Minshew looked very good yesterday. Um, I don't want to say very good, but he played a really smooth game. As you said, he's not really. Um, when you look at Jalen Hurts and Minshew, you can't say there's big difference. It's not really a big difference. It's just that one is more dynamic in the running game. One has maybe a better touch and more accuracy and can step up in the pocket better with more confidence to throw the deep ball better. And Minshew, yeah, that's really what I see from Minshew. I think he can do well with a good offensive line. He can step up. He can read the defense. He's aware of what's going on, and he's not shy to throw the ball down the field. As you saw, we didn't see a lot of those seam passes from Jalen Hurts, as you said. Because Hurts, what he likes to do is if he doesn't see anything um, between the second and third read, he takes off. Because if his first read isn't there and he doesn't see anything on the other side of the field, he just takes off. That's something that he learned in college with Lincoln Riley. That's something that they teach you in college as a quarterback in the collegiate level. But in the pros, in the pro football, in the NFL, you're gonna have to kind of change the script, flip the script because QBs would have to stay in the pocket, and if they don't see that first read, they're gonna have to start looking at those second and third reads. And if they don't see that, that's when you take off and run. But if you can't put the ball in the money or like in a spot where your receivers can get it or in the window, then it's really pointless to throw it. You just got to take off. But yeah, Minshew was very good yesterday, so very happy with his performance.
Yeah, and I mean we did see Jalen at times this year have to, you know, confide to the pocket a little bit when the opposing defense turns him one dimensional. Either that or the lack of running the football, or this is like a B or C effect. But you know, C would be that, in result of A and B, the team would be down too much to not be able to run the football. So in the end, you're still hurting yourself in terms of what you're able to do from a play calling standpoint. And one thing I noticed a little bit. It wasn't drastic, but it was a little bit with Gardner in there. Is I think Gardner has a little more pocket comfort, in terms of trusting his offensive line, when it comes to protection. And while Hertz has that same quality, he's more prone to want to be to switch on hero mode and go for the gain of yardage himself. Whereas I think Gardner has a little bit better pocket feet in buying more time to allow his receivers to get open if they're not necessarily winning their matchup off the bat. And I seen that in the Watkins crosser. I didn't necessarily see it with both Goddard touchdowns because he was open on the first one. Gardner threw it at the right time to fit it in the window while a linebacker was trailing and the safety was back there. And then the second one, he was wide open because so those two didn't really matter. But there was other plays where he was buying time in the pocket, trusting his offensive line, and making the necessary throws. And that's one thing. That's one thing when it comes to Hurts that he needs to work on a little bit.
Right.
And then we bring up Jalen Rager, and I thought for the game that you might as well make him a J-Jaw 2.0 on the field and just leave him to blocking after the Gainwell touchdown, but because he just wasn't capable of doing anything else. And if you're limited if you are limited on offense and those limitations affect you bad enough for it to carry into special teams play, that's how you're weaned out in availability on this roster to allow players from the practice squad to get chances. So I mean, I've seen people talk about, well, Jason Huntley's still on the practice squad and he's a better special teams player with kickoffs and punt returns. So why not put him out there? And it's a shame to this point because of the first round title that that possesses Rager, because that's when we selected him. And man, it's just not what you want to see out of a first round pick, especially with the legacy that he's supposed to carry behind him, with his father being a former player. And um, to have those first round expectations, it's just, and I get it for how bad he's being scrutinized right now. And I think this is one thing that I was saying in the call in, from what we remember. Maybe he's just not built for Philadelphia overall. I mean, he could still be a solid NFL receiver, possibly for another team, but for what the Eagles are now asking him to do under this new coaching staff, he may not be built to stay here. And
Right.
it's just, overall, it sucks. Because we're already at the void of weapons right now, especially at the wide receiver position, with first and second year players. The lack of a true veteran on the field, and let's be real, Greg Ward doesn't count. So it's it's really a shame at this point, to what it's come to for Jalen Rager, when your quarterback needs you the most.
Right. And I want to touch on this because when we look at Minshew and Hurts, my question to you is, when I watch like Hurts and Minshew, when I see Minshew, I see him more confident when he throws the deep ball. With Hurts, I feel like he's shy to throw it sometimes because he knows he can't get it there. I mean, I think he can get it there, but he doesn't think it. He's like timid at times. When I see the film, he can throw it down the field, but it's not like with a confidence. And like when I saw yesterday Minshew, when he threw the ball down the field, he threw it confidently. Like when you saw his face, he was confident to throw that deep ball. Like he just slung it down there. He slung it, and when I see Hurts, I believe it was the Giants game or the Niners game, one of those games. It was where it was on a I think it was on like a play where Hurts was in the pocket. He stepped up. He like had to throw it down the field, and he didn't see that the guy was like wide open, and he missed him. But the ball was like a little overthrown. So I see
Hmm.
sometimes where it's underthrown. So yeah, I just feel like it's more less confidence with Hurts. From what I've seen, he's shy or like timid to throw it. With Minshew, I just see a more confident quarterback.
Yeah, and if when we're talking these two quarterbacks, realistically, I mean, Minshew's the more experienced guy to this point, and him being in this situation already, where the starter goes down due to injury, and he has to come in and right the ship. I mean, we've seen it in Jacksonville, where they gave Foles all that money, and he ends up getting hurt, and then Gardner ends up having to come in, and the rest is history for the for the like the beginning of Minshew mania, and everybody freaking out, about his style and the stash and everything, and people were growing stashes. But um, yeah, man, it's to me, the mental side, especially when it comes to confidence, can completely alter how you play on the field. And what it just doesn't make sense to us half the time, because of watching Hurts as a quarterback, when he can have, you know it's just, I don't get it. It's like he has an on and off switch somewhere. Whether it was that game against Dallas in 2020, and he just with confidence, he just tossed that ball up to Deshaun Jackson, and it was right in his hands. It was almost a perfect throw. Was it a tad behind him? Maybe. I mean, you can argue that it could have been over the shoulder, and it would have been a little more natural for Deshaun. But I don't. Was he used to Deshaun Jackson's kind of speed? Probably not, because he, even at 33 years old, he was still the fastest receiver on that roster. And yeah, I'm gonna say he's faster than Quez and Rager because
Oh, that's a debate.
Deshaun I
That's
mean, Deshaun's a freak. I don't care what anybody says. For that dude to still be able to run as fast as he does at 34 years old, there's almost nothing like it. I'm sure there's other fast players like that. I'm sure Tyreek Hill is still going to be, a cheetah at 34. But Deshaun was one of the
yeah.
was one of the guys to do it first, and that's why it's as remarkable as it is. Um, yeah, but I mean it's tough. It's tough to watch, but these are the growing pains that we have to continue to work with if we really want to find out what Hurts is going to become down the road. And really, it's not all on him. It's also on his head coach. It's also on his quarterback coach. It's also on his teammates maintaining a timing on the field. For those guys to be on the same page, there's a lot of factors that you consider, but at the end of the day, it starts with how the leader of the offense plays on the field, and yeah, Gardner did show, as we talked about, Gardner did show something a little different to me, and especially, especially more so when you talk about offensive simplicity. And in this case, the simplicity defines how he was able to just take what the defense gave him and utilize the matchups that were right in front of your face. And that's something that Hertz has struggled with. I don't want to say mightily, just because of his numbers and what he's able to produce, despite the circumstance. But it's a considerable struggle. And yeah,
Right.
you can say all you want about that. Well, where was Goddard in the Giants game, and where was Devontae Smith? Well, part of that's scheme, and part of that is players' lack of ability to get open. And you know, I and in terms of Goddard, that was one thing I warned people about that. Um, and I don't know whether you remember it or not because it was a while ago. I think it was around the time where the Ertz trade talks were officially starting, and then there was another instance where they were heating up, and I told people, I'm like, look, Goddard has not been exposed to a lot of number one tight end situations he's not necessarily facing the best defenders on the opposing team. And I warn people, I says it's going to get harder for him. I mean, the way we were able to see Ertz work through double teams all those years because of the eliteness to his route running and just and just being a football magnet and how well he's still able to play for the Arizona Cardinals. As much as I hate to say it, but all good things must come to an end. But but I warned about that with Goddard, and I think we all seen it coming with Devontae Smith and how he has trouble with physical corners. Now, this game, Hall for the Jets is a physical corner, but he was alternating between Goddard and Smith. So, unless you watch the all 22, then you can really break down and see how well Devontae was or wasn't winning his matchups. But overall, with how Gardner was executing the offense, I I just want to see that a little bit more from Jalen in terms of making it easier on yourself than than making it harder for no reason, and always settling for in trying to settle for the big play more so than just using what you have, because we've seen a lot of times where if something wasn't there, Gardner just took the read in the flat when you
Right.
would split out the running back, and how much open space, whether it was Kenny, whether it was Miles, and those tight end screens, how effective they were. Because and that's one thing Jalen hasn't done a whole lot of, and part of that's on him, and part of that is schematics with the offense. But you know in order for Hertz to continue to improve, he has to start off with simplicity before the complexity comes into the equation. And until he learns to do that, and until this coaching staff just like instills it into his head, then I think we're going to see more up and down games going into the future, if Jalen Hurts is the future at quarterback for the Eagles.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like it's more personally him having trouble scanning the field. If he learned how to if he learned how to scan the field a little better, he can find guys like Watkins, Rager on like crossers, like simple slants. I think it's more sort of Hurts and like my bad. I think it's more sort of Hurts and his trouble scanning the field, him having trouble scanning the field, not like looking down the field at times when guys like Rager or Watkins call for the deep ball. Uh, or sometimes I seen this in a Carolina game. Devontae Smith called for the deep ball. Hurts didn't trust him. So I think it's more sort of Hurts not having trust in some of his receivers, or a lack of him not having trust in himself to like rip the ball down the field. I think his level of performance can be very high. Will I go as far as saying Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson? That's a different story. But I can say he has that potential based off of what I've seen from him and his legs and that dynamic presence that he brings to the table. He put on the table, but it's more sort of the up and downs. You can't have that, especially in Philly. Like one day they'll hate you, the next week they'll like love you, like out of nowhere. So even when you do the right things, say they seem to hate you still. So Philly's a tough place to play. Yeah. So I think Hurts is a good player. He just has issues with scanning the field and his deep ball. There's nothing really wrong with it. I think it's more sort of him delivering it accurately and not underthrowing it and overthrowing it and underthrowing it, and inconsistency there. So yeah, and I saw when Gardner Minshew, when he had the offensive line, like when they timed the pass perfectly for him, and he could step up to see guys on crossers, simple slants, over routes for like Watkins or Rager or Smith. He took it, and he got Devontae Smith over 700 yards. So I'll take it. Helps his case to maybe being the best rookie wide receiver this year, close to Chase. It's right neck and neck with him and Chase right now, but I'll give the upper leverage to Chase. But yeah, I saw more of a better touch accuracy yesterday from Minshew. I did see
Mhm.
Hurts, and yeah, Hurts still has trouble with scanning the field. Um, yeah, that's what I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can chalk it up to a couple of things, whether it's the whether it's the level of competition that he faced defensively and offensively. Since you know, minus the first half, we did hunker down in the second half, but a lot of that had to do with the offense maintaining the amount of time of possession that they did.
Right.
But no, you could like I said, you can narrow it down to two things. Like, one, the level of competition, and two, the majority of the throws that were made were short to intermediate. Nothing was necessarily deep, unless you want to count that try on that 50-50 ball to Devontae Smith. I think that was really one of the only deep balls that was
It was
attempted that you can consider a deep ball. But the both of Goddard's touchdowns were 25 plus yards, so they're not necessarily deep. And I think the one Quez had was in the same range, maybe in the low 20s, if I can recall. But yeah, no, you gotta give it up you gotta give it up to the unison of what Gardner and Sirianni were able to do between quarterback and play caller. They kept everything in front of them. They made it simple to a fault, based on the defense that they were facing, and at the end of the day, it was executed. Um, and then what you were saying about Jalen Hurts, and it almost feels like that he has a suffering of early career Lamar syndrome, where he's like a first read and go at times when he doesn't necessarily have to do that. And of course, this chalks back to what was mentioned about that. You know, think about it. Hertz has been sacked this whole year less than 10 times. I mean, you'll take. I'm pretty sure it's less than 10 times that he's only been sacked, and and when you think about it, that's completely on. That's almost completely on the proficiency of how well the offensive line has been, how healthy they were able to stay for the most part. Minus Jack Driscoll, Isaac Sayamalu, and Brandon Brooks. Being out 11 weeks, but for the pieces that were coming in and that are still there, they've done a damn good job to this point in protecting the quarterback. Unlike last year, where it was almost, where it was in the range of 50 times, but that's not the here nor there. But a lot of that has to do with Hurts being as potent of a scrambler that he is at times. But of course, that could be a detriment to himself, in doing so. It has an effect of hindering his abilities to throw the football and go through his progressions, and get used to making reads in the pocket instead of going out of structure and fighting for first downs yourself. And this is something that a collaboration of the head coach to offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach. They all have to get with him and help him to understand that. Listen, man, your offensive line is one of the best in this league, and you do have playmakers on this team that are ready to do the job for you. Give them a little more trust than you have right now, and they will pay it off. But until that happens, we're going to have up and down. We're going to have up and down weeks in what we have seen from week one up until now. Even though week one wasn't necessarily a down game, because we thought we were going to click on all cylinders with how we did against the Falcons, and well, that didn't necessarily happen at all. But if there's anything else offensively that can be wrapped up, feel free to speak your mind. But I think we covered pretty much everything, aside from the awesome game that the Eagles collection of running backs had. And, well, predictably, Miles Sanders gets hurt again. Unfortunately, re-aggravation of that ankle. And of course, it's fitting for an Eagles team uh, for a guy to have a career game in terms of the amount of carries that he was given, 24 carries. Miles Sanders got. That is a career high. And he made all of them count with 120 yards. He averaged 5.1 a carry. And lo and behold, he re aggravates that ankle. So it's only fitting to this point of what the Eagles go through in terms of injuries and the injury scare to Jason Kelsey. But we'll get into injuries a little bit later as we have about 15 minutes left to go over what's the lack thereof defense in half of this game, and then we'll assess the injuries and see where we think we're going to be in terms of the bye week. But anything you want to add in terms of the injuries in the second half or the game that Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell had?
Yeah. Kelsey, I think he went down. I don't think it was in the second. I think it may have been the third or fourth quarter. I think he got injured. At that point, you should have just put Sanders, Kelsey, your main starters out of the game, because at that point you're already beating down a terrible team. Like, what do you have to lose? Yeah, so just rest your starters and get on with the bye week, and then come fresh, new, repaired, and then go on your run against division opponents. And it just doesn't help that we have to play division opponents, and you have guys like Sanders going down with the same ankle again. As you said, he had a career game in terms of the carries. And that just sucks that he had to go down. Kelsey, he's fine. He will play after the bye week. I did see that report that he's going to play after the bye week. But yeah, it just
Thankfully.
sucks that some of these injuries always happen when we're like on a roll or something, and it just sucks. But I feel like we have to start when we're on like blow.
Minor interruption. It's all good though. But I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious, you guys, in terms of chalking up the fact that
Yeah,
it can't be an Eagles season without injuries happening at the most inopportune time. Especially with the external circumstances. The Vikings being now the new trash bin of the NFL and losing to the Detroit Lions, giving them their first win.
that's
And for what it's worth, I get it. They lost Adam Thielen with an ankle injury that game. Kirk Cousins didn't have him to throw to. Justin Jefferson, I think, still had a good game, but
yeah.
overall, overall,
Right.
when you're paid to be that franchise quarterback, as as that was debated in a couple of call-ins that we're very well aware of, and like the definition of a franchise quarterback.
Yep.
But
All right.
when you're paid to be that guy, you have to deliver. And while that wasn't necessarily Cousins' fault that the defense gave up a game-winning touchdown, you're still responsible for for when the money's on the table and you have chance after chance offensively to put points on the board. That's where the blame comes in terms of the quarterback. But back to the Eagles, and we were hoping that the Raiders would get the job done against the Washington football team to make it easier on us for a wild card spot and positioning in the division. That didn't happen. And I'm not going to completely base it on an egregious no call on a pass interference, but the Raiders had the opportunity to get into field goal range if that flag was thrown, and the back judge had basically the best angle at it, and you still don't throw the flag. I mean, the Raiders receiver's jersey was grabbed, like held onto for definitely more than 5 yards and you still don't throw the flag, but that's not the here nor
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And, you know, again, the Eagles are in a spot where it's not a means of controlling their own destiny because they don't lead the division right now, and the division is pretty competitive to this point, minus the Giants as they took an
Yeah.
L to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Um,
The
Rightfully
Giants
so,
are
even though Daniel Jones didn't play, and it was Glennon, and I'm sure that the excuses were brewing for the Giants fandom, but
right.
uh, you know with how this division predictably pans out every single year, the Eagles always seem to be in it, and sometimes it's to win it, and sometimes it's to lose it. But now they could very well be in a spot to win it. But a lot of it is going to depend on how well we play in these final, I think, 4 games because and they're all division games. We still have to play Washington twice, and we have revenge games against the Giants and Cowboys. So,
I have a bet.
imagine the last 4 games for us are a fight for the division. No, no, it's not NFL entertainment without that for the Eagles. But yeah, man, it's just a shame. But
Right.
while you don't got while you don't have an interruption now, you can
Well,
you can
I
continue
heard
with
my
your
door knocking, so I had to go
yeah.
check what it was. But yeah. Um, what I was gonna say was the lack of like consistency with like being healthy and stuff. It
Hmm.
kind of hurts us because we are a really young team and we do have depth, but we can only have depth for so long. Like we can have depth on top of depth, but if the depth keeps getting injured, we won't have any depth left. So it's like you have to um you have to be more precautious with medical staff and what you're giving these players, the conditioning and stuff. You have to be very precautious with that. But the Vikings are now a laughing stock of the NFL. How do you lose to the Lions and the Niners? They lost to the Seahawks, as I predicted. By the way, I picked Seattle in that game. Division games are always a trap game. I mean, the division team always knows how you're gonna play, no matter if you're good or you're bad. They always know how to play you. And both of those teams, actually, the Washington football team and the San Francisco 49ers, have two teams over 500 next. Dallas for Washington, which they could definitely lose that game. And they're due for a loss, too, because they
Yeah.
are on a 4-game win streak now.
Yeah,
So
Washington has won 4 straight. Yeah,
they're
and I
due
and I
for a
think that was more, and I think that Seattle San Fran game was more about the 49ers losing than the
right,
Seahawks winning because San Fran at that point seemed to have turned a corner and they've found their groove, so to speak. And it's just to
right,
lay an egg in that game. You just can't do that if you want to win your division. But I
right.
think I think the Rams are in their division though, and the Rams are still on top. I think so. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, so no, the Cardinals are on top now.
or is it? Okay, that's right. It was Arizona.
Cardinals,
Yeah,
they're like
Arizona. Yep.
10-2 or something, 9-2, 9-3. I don't know, but they're
Yeah,
they're on.
Arizona took care of business again. Yeah.
Yeah, they are hot right now. But yeah. The Lions beat the Vikings. Seattle beat the Niners. Washington beat the Raiders. So we would
Sadly,
need Washington to lose to the Dallas Cowboys next week, and that's very possible because they're due for a loss. As you said, they're on a 4-game win streak, so that's a probably a loss, and it's a division
Taylor
game.
Heineke being like an unsung hero after Fitzpatrick going down with that nasty injury. So, I mean,
Right, 4-game a 4-game winning streak. So yeah, and it's a division game. That makes it even
mhm.
harder for them. Um, so if that would happen, they would be 6 and right now they're 6-7, right?
Yeah, I think
Six
so.
and
So
six.
they'll
Yeah,
be
they're
they'll
six.
be at if they win again, they'll be at 500.
Yeah. So if they would win again, No, I thought they were 6-6 because I checked on the schedule. They're 6-6. Yeah,
Mm, yeah, I'll check in the middle.
yeah,
Let me see.
yeah.
NFC
But
East. Yeah, NFC East standings. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Washington's at 500 right now. Excuse me.
right. So they're at 500. So they would be 6-6 right now. Meaning we would need them to lose next week against Dallas to put them 6-7. And
Hmm.
if the Niners lose to the Bengals next week, which is another very possible loss, we can also be 6-7 with them. So honestly, there's a possibility that three teams can be tied for that seventh seed. I, I mean, I don't know how the playoff picture would look with seven teams. I mean, three teams in the seventh seed. It would look a lot different, but yeah.
Tiebreakers, maybe. I don't know, but well, actually, the tiebreakers depend on your division records. But
And we
uh,
lost to the Niners too,
yeah,
so we have that on us.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, well, coming down to the conclusion of the stream already 4 minutes remaining.
all right.
Do do
Time
we
flies
even do we even need to dive into the entire game with this with,
by. Oh,
with this defense? I mean, like I said from the jump, I would have thought the ice cream man was coordinating these guys instead of Jonathan Gannon because it was soft serve all over the place. In the first half,
right.
and even the second half, they were still soft, but um, the adjustments were too little too late. This game did not need to be as close as it looked on the scoreboard. And um, and it's even scarier when you think about it because of the fact that the Eagles were limited to 12 points in the entire second half by way of all field goals that we weren't able to score. And if this was a more competent offense, we may have well ended up losing. We have ended up. I can't even talk because of the frustration, but we could have ended up losing that game if the Jets were any more competent offensively for the way that Gannon was having his defense play with just ice cream cones all over the place. It was just it was bad. It was bad. There's really no excuse for it. I don't know how you can be that passive to a quarterback that, as bad as he was all year, to have one of his best games against us in a loss. I mean, he was 7 of 8 at one point as as a rookie on a bad team. And of course that just gives us that just gives people more material to make fun of the Eagles, that we can't seem to do anything right as a team. And yeah, that first half was definitely one to completely forget about in terms of defense.
right. All right. I'll put it this way: Gannon needs to go. I I've seen enough. Um, will he go this off season? Most likely not. I think they'll give him another shot. But what we would want is for him to get the hell out of Philly and never come back. He is terrible. First of all, the only thing I can give him credit for was his adjustments in the second half because they didn't score any other points from the first half. I think they only had 18 points in the entire game, and that was all in the first half. But
Yeah, and I mean, a
right,
lot of that's credited to the offense in terms of time of possession, where we had about 13 and a half minutes worth in the third quarter alone. So,
right.
you know,
So yeah, our offense helped our defense with the time of possession by just beating on the Jets, beating down on them. Um, yeah. So when you win the time of possession, that automatically makes your defense look good, even though that's not the true story. They were still putting up like these intermediate passes, those 20, 30-yard chunk plays with Elijah Moore, even though he barely caught any passes on Slay. Slay was a lockdown corner as he always is.
Yep.
And there was a one deep ball that Zach Wilson threw off his back foot, and it was a one-on-one with Elijah Moore and Slay kind of knocked it down. Just a
Yeah,
great
beautiful deflection. I was afraid that they were going to throw a flag on that,
right. It
but
looked like
watching it again, Slay was crafty enough to make it as if it was a better defensive play than just a sloppy
right,
kind of penalty.
right. And it was more sort of the defensive line not causing pressure. And we've seen
Yeah,
it a lot this season with our defensive line not causing pressure. The one thing that the Eagles have kind of ran on for the past 30 to 40 years, I would say, is our defensive line. If we don't have our defensive
yeah.
line causing pressure, then we don't look good on defense at all. Because that just makes the corners look a lot worse. And yeah, Steven Nelson, oh man, I don't want to get started on that dude. Yeah, he's more of like a 3 or a 2, but he's just not good. And
We
his
could
name,
we could still be worse off. You,
yeah,
you you can at least say that we could be worse off.
right,
Because with Steven on the opposite side, then that allows Avante to play his natural position at the nickel spot, and he's looked so much better this year compared to last year,
right,
where he was forced to be put on the outside, and he was just getting abused, week in and week out. So, for what it's worth, we could be worse off right now. But
right,
yeah, Steven as a 1 year, as a 1 year rental. There's times where we can ask for more out of him, and yeah, he hasn't been playing up to his. I don't even know what kind of expectations he's had from the jump, other than to be that competent guy on the opposite side of Slay that we didn't have last year, and a lot of that blanketed Slay into looking like a Pro Bowl corner. But he
right,
didn't have help on the opposite side, and with him having to roam the field, and pick the matchups that were abusing other corners. That responsibility ended up having to be branched onto him, and lo and behold, and whether it was DK Metcalf and man, I don't. Or
Adam,
Devontae Adams. Yeah, that's right. But those were the only two that really did damage to Slay, and it flowed into this year. Nobody has done significant damage with Slay in coverage, and at 31 years old, Slay's looking like a Pro Bowler.
right,
I think that's a topic for another day. If you dive deeper into that, because that could be good or bad for the Eagles if he asks for another contract to be close to one of the highest paid in the NFL, and you're talking a player that's continuing to enter his early 30s. So what do you do from there? Especially the fact that Zach McPherson is not ready yet. Um,
right,
so, but yeah, and you
hmm
were talking about the defensive line, and from what I noticed, I only seen two guys show up, and that was Josh Sweat. For what it's worth, he had some good moments, and Javon Hargrave. I think those were really the only two guys that jumped off my screen as I was watching the game. Cox was quiet again. Derek Barnett was quiet again. Ryan Kerrigan, with his limited snap count, he didn't do much of anything other than one of the very later plays in the game. His pressure forced the interception by Zach Wilson that was caught by Marcus Epps, because he was
oh
uh,
boy,
yeah, he was
right,
that he caught. And
right,
Marcus Epps has been a great story, but of course, that's not the here nor there for with the defensive line conversation. But
right,
yeah, I mean it's overall disappointing as to the the inconsistency that we've seen to this point. Gannon schematically not using players to their strengths, as Josh Sweat's still not being used right. He hasn't been able to get the most out of his guys, especially when he lost Brandon Graham, who was, pretty much a run defense staple on that D line. Still, he was still crafty enough to get the necessary pressures and be one of those dependable guys, on the edge when Cox and Hargrave are, in the interior trenches trying to, push that line back into the quarterback's lap. And, I mean, it is what it is to this point until Gannon realizes that something's got to change, because with the expectations on how our D line was built from a depth perspective, and him bringing up the hits principle at the beginning of the year, and wanting to force a lot of turnovers, and we got a bunch of hungry, aggressive guys on this D line, and it makes me excited. Well, we have we haven't seen a fraction of that this season. And yeah, like you said, I don't know if he's going to be gone either in terms of termination, but at least give this guy a senior defensive assistant. Maybe have Tracy Rocker help him out for the amount of experience that he's had between the collegiate and NFL level. I don't know. Like, you have to do something where the bulk of the responsibility in coordinating and helping with the execution of the defense, you got to do something where a bulk of that responsibility is not on Gannon until he develops in his own right in terms of a defensive play caller.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's more. I saw your video. I think it was a day or two ago with the Jonathan Gannon vanilla defense. Yeah,
Ice Cream Man, yeah.
I love that video. It represents Gannon truly. He's
But
making
it's a shame. It's a shame on our part as well, though, for how much flack we gave Jim
right.
Schwartz for all those years,
That's what I was about to
and
say.
then just to see a worse product of it,
Right.
on the field with Jonathan Gannon. But of course, there is quite an experience gap between the two. But you have to, if you're going to be a first time um, play caller at that position, or a first time, like a first time. Um, I can't think of the word. Like, if it's going to be your first time at said position, and when you're the head coach and you instill that much trust into somebody with the amount of youth that Gannon has, prospectively, there has to be something about him quality wise that stands out, to where a lot of these more experienced coordinators weren't as considered, than bringing in a guy to try and help him develop from that play calling standpoint. And um, he hasn't been brought to that standard yet. So that just makes us appreciate Jim Schwartz a little bit more, because I mean, and it just makes it worse, to the fact that we played the Jets last year. Jim Schwartz was absolutely relentless against the Jets last year, to where the team had almost double-digit sacks.
Right.
I think the D line was responsible for 9 sacks. I mean, he had Orlando Scandrick blitzing, of all people. The pressure caused Nate Gary to get a pick 6. I mean, dude, but that's the worst part. We didn't see any of it from Jonathan Gannon this past game, and it's the same team. What are you doing? There's no,
Hey,
it just makes it worse. There's no reason for you to open up an ice cream shop on the sideline and have your defense play like this. It's a rookie quarterback that's been struggling all year. It's just flat out unacceptable.
and we have guys that you can use for the blitz too, like Marcus
Yes.
Anthony Harris, who hits really hard.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah, it sucks. And you also have
Rodney's been used to
linebackers,
it for years.
right? You also have linebackers that you can blitz as well. Sewell,
Yes.
Edwards, Singleton. You can use Taylor, but he's out right now. But
Yeah. Singleton's a
Avery,
good blitzer, but he doesn't get home consistently, and sometimes his
yeah,
angles are bad. But T.J. Edwards is a little more physical in that regard, which he almost had an interception yesterday.
right,
Had the ball was if the ball was in a better spot for him to dive for it. But yeah, go ahead.
right, yeah. Avery, you also have to use in the blitz, I guess, because he does well. I don't know what to like think about with Gannon, but yeah. Uh, and it's also like him not timing the blitzes correctly. He does not know how to time a blitz right. With Schwartz, yeah, he ran the six defense, but he kind of actually ran a better defense for the simple fact that he didn't develop players correctly, but he also generated pressure to the quarterback. Um, and I mean, truth be told, if you gave Schwartz the corners that we had this year, with Slay and Maddox having and Pro Bowl seasons, and the secondary that we have this year, minus maybe Nelson, yeah, we would done a lot better the last several years with
Well, he
the
was well equipped in 2017, now wasn't he?
right. So if you added this secondary to that year, we may have won that Super Bowl. We may have won that Super Bowl a lot better because our offense generated a lot of yards in that game, but our defense also gave up a lot of yards that game to Tom Brady, 505 yards, and our
Yeah.
defense this year. Well, I don't think it would have given up that much, but yeah, yeah, Schwartz is a lot better than Gannon. It's hilarious because I thought he would have been better, but
Who would
yeah,
have thought we'd come to this point? Seriously,
us
who would have
appreciating
thought?
Jim Schwartz out of all
Yeah.
people. That sticks defense that we wanted out last year. We're appreciating that. Yeah,
But at least he was a little more calculated in terms of blitzing, and
right,
you know there was cases where it was you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz, and
right,
um, I think there's a multitude of games in Schwartz's tenure where it was one of the last few plays for the opposing offense, and he would just and and he would call for a blitz that seemed that it was at just the right time where we were and even then we were still biting our fingernails just or crossing our fingers just hoping that it works, but they did, and they were in good timing where whereas Gannon's just so inconsistent that sometimes the sometimes the blitz doesn't work, and yeah, a blitz doesn't work. You call it like it is there, but and there's times where they just don't make sense or they're untimely, and he pressured. There's times where we're asking for pressure and he doesn't bring the pressure, and like dude, like come on, but. It just sucks. It just sucks to this point that we're suffering more from a defensive headache than an offensive headache. I mean, I guess it's a good thing that both sides of the ball aren't giving us headaches, and it's more so one over the other. But that's where a line has to be drawn, and you just sit back and be like, well, I'm still looking for consistency, and it's just not there yet. But of course, it ties back to the growing pains that we've been continuing to talk about this football team, and and it also brings up the fact of when we talk about it, it's just for those that thought we were going to win 12 games, I mean, dude, just like come on, be a little more realistic with the circumstance. I mean, it's it's a week to week basis with the NFL, and anything's possible, but yet you really have to consider all of the factors first before jumping off the cliff. But as we extended the episode by 15 minutes, I think we're towards the end here. We had, obviously, we had a hell of a time, and a pretty detailed and informative conversation with whether it was the Jets game performance wise, the injury status of players, and looking ahead to divisional matchups and the rest of the schedule for teams that are involved that kind of control our potential at earning the wild card for the playoffs, because it is still on the table. But I think we can finish off with the injuries that have occurred in the Jets game. People that are still on IR that could come back, and go from there and close episode 3 out. So, as we've already talked about, Miles Sanders and Jason Kelce, according to Sirianni, he has a good feeling that both of them will be back after the bye. So, thank God, because I don't want to see another botched snap from Nate Herbig. It's got to stop.
Right.
It's got to stop. No, that's. And they were both in perfect timing from one another too, because the last time Herbig had to come in, and I think it was the Saints game, because Kelce went off the field for like a couple of plays, or at least the first play. The first time it was a botched snap, and it went for negative yardage because Hurst had to try and tangle it in. And then the second time. Right. The second time it happens, it was a similar botched snap that Minshew had to run back for and collapse on the football, and that's what pretty much led to us. I think that's what led to our only punt of the game against the Jets. Otherwise, we wouldn't have punted a single time if Nate Herbig knew how to freaking snap a football to his quarterback. But
I think,
oh my God,
these players would practice on what they're doing wrong. I mean, the dude's not practicing from what I saw. I mean, how on God's green earth you snap a ball 10 yards the other way when you had that whole entire week to practice? When you just saw, like 2 weeks ago, you made that same mistake, and now you had like another 2 weeks to prepare. And you do the same thing, but make it worse. Like, I just don't understand that.
I mean, Kelce did it last year for what it's worth, but they weren't as bad as the two that Herbig did this year. And it was only 2 snaps that Herbig had to do, and he botched both.
Dude, Williams.
It just makes it worse.
Williams was literally laughing at him when he made that. Quentin Williams.
I seen that.
He was right there. He was just laughing he was like, "Oh man, you made our jobs easier."
God, Herbig was so embarrassed. He was so embarrassed.
You gotta learn on their mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure we're going to say plenty of prayers. To hope that we get Kelce back after the bye, because I think going into the Jets game prior, I think he was on the injury report that week, with the right knee aggravation, and it was kind of a similar story, between him and Miles. It seemed to be re-aggravations to both of them, and hopefully they're not severe enough that it'll keep them out of losing them for the next game, which I think is our first against Washington. I think it's our first game against Washington, but we're going to need them. We're going to need them to to try and cool them down if Dallas is incapable of doing that. And oh man, I can only imagine if we have to face Washington after them winning 5 straight and taking out the best team in our division. That's not going to be that's not going to be a recipe for success immediately for the Eagles. But of course, we've dealt with adversity pretty damn well to this point, and it'll be a good test. But
Right.
between him and between Kelsey and Miles, hopefully we continue to get good news with them too. I think Steven Nelson, it was a shoulder injury, and then I think for Patrick Johnson, um, I don't recall necessarily, but I think it had something to do with his back. Between those two, Sirianni said that they will also be okay, good to go. He's expected to get more news on Brandon Brooks, who's been on IR for the last 11 weeks with that pec strain, a injury similar to what Hargrave had last year, and we already know how long that kept Javon out of commission, but it wasn't to the extent of Brandon Brooks' injury. Of course, Brooks is older and plays a different position, but
Right.
Hargrave, I think, is a little. I think he has to be a little better conditioned, especially that he's only 27 years old. So we should be getting more news on Brooks. And then who am I missing?
Howard,
What?
I think.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, that's right, Jordan Howard. Sirianni also said that he's making very good progress in terms of his knee injury, and he is hoping, or it's that he thinks there's good signs to come that Howard will also be ready to go after the bye week. So,
Good.
in terms of injury news, it
Yeah.
seems positive all around. And worst case scenario, if we don't have Kelsey,
Yeah.
if
God
if
forbid.
really our only options would be Luke Juriga, who I think is still here because we brought him back onto the
Yeah.
practice squad. Brett Toth is still here, and
Dick.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't want her big under center again. And
Right.
um,
Dickerson.
Dickerson would be a tough call because I think he's playing too good at left guard right now next to Mailata, and I don't know if you want to ruin the chemistry there for the sake of switching his position when we already have backups that we can prepare a little better instead of having them go through a position change in the trench.
Right.
But I mean that opinion I'm sure is different across the board with Eagles fans. But that's my point of view. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's it. I think that's it with the injuries, and we had a kick-ass episode 3.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciative for Big Play Slate to join me on my channel for episode 3, a touchdown talk to keep this going, to keep this series alive. Again, we had another assessment stream. The first 2 were prior to the Denver Broncos matchup, where I've already had Philly Sports Talk podcast and JC Eagles Talk. We broke down the offense and the defense, but this one was a little bit different because it was a post game of the Jets matchup, and we have analyzed a bunch of different assessments
Yeah.
afterward, and I will leave you with the final closing thoughts if you have any more.
Yeah. The Mavericks suck. I have to get that out of the way. No, I'm playing. I am playing. Yeah,
I was
but
gonna say, yeah, how'd your Lakers look against the Clippers?
we competed. We competed. I mean, we competed with them, and they were a good team. Hey,
On what side of the ball?
we played a.
Because
We did
you
not
guys,
do
you
good
guys,
defensively.
you
Yeah,
did not play any defense.
I called that game for like a live play-by-play, and at the end of the game, Luke Kennard was like 5 for 5 at the end of the game. Like he could not miss a singular shot. Like our perimeter defense is terrible, but yeah. That Lakers Mavs one, we have to call a stream for that one. Depending on your channel or my channel for like live
Yeah.
play by play, that's gonna be a fun one.
Well, I at least have to get back into Mavericks
Right,
content.
right,
It's
yeah.
been too damn long, but yeah, because I mean I have a NBA Game Pass or League Pass subscription that I haven't taken advantage of yet again to go back and do some film rooms from watching previous games. But you know we're not necessarily in a good place right now, and Porzingis is dealing with knee issues again. Luca is dealing with ankle soreness and a thumb sprain on his left hand. And, you know,
How much is he out?
it's a mess, and we play Brooklyn tomorrow. So
Oof. How much
yeah.
is Luca averaging this year, by the way?
I think he's still above 25 a game. I think he's still close to triple double numbers. He's been a little bit underwhelming. I think part of that has to do with the change of the basketball, which I'm not going to continue to use as an excuse to this point, since you know the majority, if not all, the teams are already 20 games in. We're almost a quarter of the way through this regular season in the NBA. So um,
Right.
at some point you have to make the adjustments, and but yeah, he's been a little bit underwhelming, and of course you know there's a coaching change that he has to get used to. There's rotational changes he has to get used to. There's different players in this roster, but overall I think the nucleus is still the same. But you know, as for a lot of teams, um, especially considering how the season is looking right now with you know teams that we haven't expected to be as good as they are for the moment, and you know the West I mean is wide open
Oh
outside of
yeah.
Golden State and Phoenix, and then in the Eastern Conference it's starting to get a little bit closer with teams dropping too many games. So
Right.
uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, I have to get back into my Mavericks content, you know, because
Mhm.
basketball was my game, and yeah, I gotta start watching the games and whatnot, and get back into that, and you know, once the weather gets nice again, I gotta I gotta show y'all at some point what I can do on a court, since
Oh
I have one
yeah.
that's only 10 minutes away.
Right. We
But
gotta get that content out there with that basketball Lindy. Gotta see it. But yeah, get my guy Lindy to 300. Just keep dropping buckets for your Mavericks. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come on your channel. It's much appreciated. It's always good to go on other streams, go on other content creators' channels, and
yeah,
kind of give your opinions. And it's always nice to hear other people's opinions. It always is. But yeah, thank you for coming. I mean, thank you for allowing me to come on your channel.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, it was I don't want to say it was long overdue, but you know, it
yeah,
was overdue, and of course, and you know, you talk about hearing other opinions, and you know, I think in terms of content creation, that helps. You know, we help each other out in terms of dynamic, and you know, making each other think about about the football team that we all come to know and love and want to cover on this kind of platform. So, yeah, you know, it's a blessing to do this, and you know, while it doesn't seem like it's extraordinary for some, you know, it is an experience that you can take for granted because you know you're putting yourself out there, you know, into the public of the massive internet world, and speaking about something that you're passionate for, and you know you subject yourself to, you know, whether it's, you know, positivity or negativity, criticism, whatever. You know, it's fun. It's fun at the end of the day, but you have to love what you do. And you know, while I sounded negative in my, you know, in my one video about the future of my channel. It's it's something that I have to continue to work on getting over. That I may not end up being as successful as other people, but I do have my own audience at the end of the day that I have to, that I gotta do my work for, and that's that. I can't help that. It seems YouTube has hit the pause button on my subscriber count. It is what it is. I mean, at least I'm not at least I'm not losing the support base that I have, and that's most important. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, with that said, we already hit an hour and a half. Of course, episode 3 of Touchdown Talk was going to be a bit longer because we did cover a broad spectrum of topics when it comes to the Eagles, and we've gone over that. So, with that said, we will conclude episode 3 of Touchdown Talk. Big thank you to Big Play Slave for coming out and and elevating the discussion of
Yeah.
the current situation the Birds are in and what the future holds as we go into the bye week. With that said, I will get out of here, as well as BPS. Fly Eagles fly, bleed green, Bird brothers and
Before
sisters.
yeah, before
MFFLs, go Mavs.
before we go, can we get the intro one more time before we go?
What?
Of the channel, the intro of the channel, or like how you start your channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
My slogan. I got you.
Yep.
But yeah, man. Everybody. I think everybody knows by now. Lindy end zone for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Eagles, one video at a time, and hopefully, yeah, I gotta drop buckets for my Dallas Mavericks again. But
All right.
that's gonna be it. As I satisfied BPS with my slogan
That
again.
was fun. Yeah. Always good to hear that.
But Bird brothers and sisters, you guys already know what it is. Fly Eagles fly, bleed green. Mavs, MFFLs, we already know. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and we will see you soon.